Hey guys, it's the Brownbag talking sports here, again to talk some more NFL news. I'm going to get to the Russell Wilson thing in a second, but I just want to give my quick thoughts on two kind of old new NFL news stories. First will be the Jordan Howard trade, and the second will be Nick Foles to the Jags. I couldn't talk about these when when these first came out because I was in the middle of a move. Like I could probably record the audio, but I didn't want to release any um kind of sloppy, unedited bullcrap. So I wanted to bring you guys what I can do my best. So yeah, but another reason I kind of held off was to just get some more context around at least the first news story because the Jordan Howard trade had my mind boggling a bit, but I have a bit more context now, so I feel a bit more confident talking about it. So, without any more delay, let's get into it. Jordan Howard, a couple weeks ago, was traded to the Eagles for a conditional sixth round pick for the 2020 draft. Conditional meaning that it could go to a fifth round pick, depending on how things play out. Like I was previously saying before, when this news came out, I was kind of I was kind of confused about it because Jordan Howard, he definitely wasn't what he was when he first came to the Bears, but to me, he was still a pretty effective piece. Like he still could run the ball, and he's a pretty strong guy, so he can hit the hole like really good. So I thought it was a little weird that the Bears traded him, especially for such compensation for like a conditional sixth round pick. So it's not even a surefire shot if they'll get a fifth. That was just odd to me at first, but I guess they're just trying to get some more reliable pieces on their offensive side. So they have to clear out some unreliable pieces. Because if there was a criticism of the Bears, it was that their offense was kind of it wasn't completely ineffective, but it just did enough to get by. And when you have a defense like that with Khalil Mack and Adam Hicks, wait, Akeem Hicks, it keeps saying Adam. When you have great defensive players like them, along with many others on that Bears defensive side, you got to have a competent offense. You got to have an offense that can do that can hold up, you know? And I guess I don't blame them, but it kind of stings to see Jordan Howard go. He's been with the Bears for not too long, but he's been there for a minute, like long enough to be called an official Bear. It's going to be weird to see Howard in a different jersey for another team, you know? But yeah, I guess you got to do what you got to do. But on the Eagles side, this was a really good pickup in free agency. The Eagles are hurting for a running back. Their offensive core is pretty decent, but when it comes to the running back position, they could use a lot more help. I'm sure the Eagles probably wouldn't have gotten Howard if it wasn't just for such a low exchange. Like a conditional sixth round pick, that's like chump change, you know? That's basically my thoughts on that. The next story I wanted to get to was Nick Foles going to Jacksonville. Nick Foles signed a 4-year, $80 million contract for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is probably, at least talk about free agent quarterbacks, this was the best case scenario for Jacksonville. I mean, Nick Foles has proved himself. The only thing he hasn't proved himself in a while is to be able to go out there and play 16 full games and then go into the postseason. But if you ask me, at least when it comes to intensity, just being thrown into a postseason position when your starting QB goes down 2 years in a row. I mean, he was thrust into that position. So there might be a bit of concern, at least injury wise. But when it comes to his mental toughness, I trust Nick Foles, man. I really do. Nick Foles was thrown into a position where where the starting QB went down, and he was just thrown out there to hopefully do something. The last couple of regular season games the Eagles played, it didn't really inspire any confidence. They got the number one seed, but it didn't really inspire much confidence in the Eagles faithful. And then the Atlanta game, Atlanta really could have won that game. That wasn't a real breakout performance by Foles. Like Foles wasn't at his best in that game, but he did just enough to give the defense a chance, and the defense showed up, and they're going to the NFC Championship, where they're expected to get demolished by the Minnesota Vikings. I was expecting the Vikings to straight up just tear apart the Eagles. Like the Eagles, of course, would try, but it would just be a complete murder. But it was the other way around. Nick Foles demolished it, and of course, you gotta give some props to Doug Peterson because he knows Nick Foles well. But Nick Foles, at the end of the day, the player still has to play. The player still has to perform, and that's what really got me about Nick Foles. But after Foles sat down and Carson came back, the team was just they never really finished games. They never really finished games. They just looked off, you know? But when Carson Wentz got injured in that Cowboys game, well, I think it might have been something at practice, but it was another back injury. And Nick Foles was thrust into the situation again. And Philly wasn't expecting Nick Foles to do anything special. They're just expecting to just get on the couch. I mean, they didn't expect any playoffs that year, but that Rams game, Nick Foles showed up, man. I think he threw like 2 interceptions. One of them was like really costly, and if the Rams hadn't fumbled a punt, the Eagles would have definitely lost. But Foles just inspired a lot of confidence. I don't know what it was, but the team just played better when he was around, and they just had so much faith in him, and they looked like they had a great time playing for him. Now it wasn't all Foles that game. There was I remember a very strong running game from the Eagles as well, but Foles, at least for the most part, didn't really do anything stupid. He didn't throw them out of the game. He gave them a chance to win, and they won 30-23. The Texans game. The Texans game was the Texans game. I wish I could have saw that live. I actually did see the final drive live, but I didn't see the complete game. But looking back on the highlights, that was like one of the best games of the season. Like Foles really showed out that game. I mean, he just created some third down magic. Like he just pulled some really good throws out of his tail. They were like pinned down deep in their own territory, and it was like 3rd and 10, and it was like down to the final minute. So if the Eagles didn't get this first down, or didn't get it on the 4th try, it would be game over. But Foles, I think he hit Ertz, and had some more third down magic in him, and he won them a game. Kicked the winning field goal. Well, he didn't kick it, but they won against the Texans. And then the Redskins game, that was just a complete massacre. But even then, I mean, they still had to travel to Washington. That wasn't an easy environment, and it was pretty close that first half. They didn't really pull away until like the second half, but they won all three, and the Vikings lost, so they got in there, and they went to Chicago. Foles didn't have his best game. Foles didn't have his best game, but at the end of the day, he put together a good drive. Foles connected to with Tate to give him a touchdown. They tried for a 2-point conversion, but for whatever reason, the refs didn't think that it was that it broke the plane, that the ball broke the plane. I think it broke the plane. Um, I could see that the refs didn't see it that clearly, but they looked at a replay and it clearly broke the plane. Like I could see them calling it on the field, not breaking the plane, but they reviewed the play, and he broke the plane, but they didn't give it to him, so it was 16-15, and Chicago, their offense got going. They got a pretty good return, and then Mitch Trubisky hit. I forgot who he hit, but it was like a big gain to put him in field goal position. All the Bears had to do was just kick a game-winning field goal. All they had to do. It wasn't even that long, but an Eagle got a hand on it. He got a little finger on it, actually. And, I mean, the kick didn't look that good to begin with, but that Eagle tipping it probably, like, really saved the game for them. Because it went, like, in and out of the goalpost. So, yeah, that was it. Of course, we know what happened from then on, but Foles had a good season, and I know I went on a bit of a long tangent there, but my point was to say that that Foles has proved himself in playoff positions because technically he did win one playoff game last year, but he was playing playoff games since he played the Rams. If the Eagles drop any of those games, if they drop a game against the Rams, the Texans, or the Redskins, they don't get the sixth seed and they don't get in the playoffs. And I have a lot of respect for Foles. I hope he does good in Jacksonville. But my main talking point about this Jacksonville thing before I went off on that Nick Foles tangent was to basically say this that the Jags really need to do all they can to support Nick Foles. They can't the O-line, let's get this straight. Bortles wasn't good last year. Bortles wasn't good. He was by far one of the worst QBs that year, but that O-line did him no favors. If you put Brady behind that O-line, you fail. You put Dak Prescott behind that O-line, you fail. You put Aaron Rodgers behind that O-line, he might break off a few good plays, but you fail. You have to have a competent setup for your QB. Your QB can't lead you that far if the people blocking for him can't block anybody, you know? The Jags O-line let a lot of sacks go down on Bortles a lot of the time, and they were ranked like one of the worst O-lines in the entire football league that year. And it was just really frustrating sometimes to see because Bortles wasn't good, but you have to give him a chance, you know? As a teammate, you have to give him a chance, and letting him get sacked that many times, that's not giving him a chance. My main advice to Jacksonville is to be happy, be thankful for this trade, be thankful for this. Thankful that Nick Foles went to you. Be thankful that just be thankful for Nick Foles in general, but along with that thankfulness, you got to build an O-line around him. You got to build something for him. You gotta give him something to work with. If he's just in that pocket getting murdered all every down, then it's gonna be a wrap. It's gonna be a wrap for him. But yeah. On second thought, I don't think I'm gonna get to that Russell Wilson thing yet. But I'm gonna get to it today. I promise. I'll record that today. I'll get that up on my channel. So double uploads. As long as the processing doesn't take like 5 years. But because the processing on my last video took a while. Like I could have had that Golden State video out the day immediately after, but I couldn't because the processing took too long, and I had to start over because it just stopped for whatever reason. But yeah. Enough about that. Let me know what you guys think about the mic. I like it. I like the audio it picks up, and I like it. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think, and yeah, I'm out. Brownbag signing out. Yeah. Bye, guys.